Neil Bronstein. I'm sitting in for Christina Sorrento. Can everyone hear me okay online?
Yes.
Yeah, good. All right, this is DRC for Readymead. It's a preliminary plan in Up County. We have some representatives here for the applicant. Do you know if everyone is here that you were expecting?
Yes.
Okay, and we have some people in the room with me from Up County, so I'll let you guys start whenever you're ready.
I'm Jonathan Casey with Up County. I am standing in for Ryan Sigworth today.
Hi, Brett Brown, Up County. I am the transportation planner.
Mary Jo Kister with Up County Environmental Planner.
I am Jeff Server. I'm with Up County.
Yeah, Patrick Butler, Up County Division Chief.
Okay, take it away.
Plans up?
Do we have e-plans up? No, I think.
This mouse is not working.
Right, I think. Do you want to use this laptop to bring it up? Or do you have it?
I think his screen, right?
No, it won't be up there, but it'll be in the Teams meeting.
Yep, join the.
Oh,
Understand? You with me?
yeah, just give me yours.
All right, well, I'm not up yet though. If someone already has e-plans up, then it might be faster for someone else. 1 second, everyone.
So who's sharing their screen for the Teams meeting? I've never done this before.
I usually don't do
At
it.
least not in the virtual, in-person world. Actually, I have, but somebody else drew it for me.
No, por favor.
I think Christine's
Sorry.
on the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's like it's usually pulled up there, right?
I'm hoping we can share on Teams.
If you join.
You join the
Share
shared
screen.
screen.
Yeah, I'll join it. Everyone who's waiting online, 1 second. We're just
Technical issues.
technical, right? Exactly.
And just so you know, the format here is kind of, we're here to answer questions. This is really your meeting. I'll answer as many questions to the best of my knowledge as possible, since I'm not actually reviewing this application.
Well, I'm Ryan Thompson. Since you kind of opened it up to us, I'm the engineer and the surveyor on this project, working with Mike Smith, who I think is there in person. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
working through the technical issues still.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Share screen.
I think Jeff's got it here. Jeff's got it there.
It's up.
Thank you.
All right. Can you, oh, is this me or you?
Either it's him.
Do you want to share or do you want him to?
If you can just click on that one.
I actually did.
Computer's supposed to be helpful.
There you go.
Okay. So now we have a plan in front of us. And I guess I will take questions from you or your engineer, whatever.
Yeah, it sounded like Ryan was about to ask a few questions.
Ryan, do you want to start? Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can start. I guess so. I did see the comments that were sent out last week, and generally they're pretty straightforward. I guess a couple of the questions or a couple of the comments and discussion that I wanted to have was regarding the Soapstone Quarry Park dedication, which is the hatched area there on the left, or of the plan. So there was a comment about wanting to determine that area, and Mike can probably explain this in more depth because he's been involved with this for much longer than I have. But I understand that that area has already been discussed, or there's been a number of meetings with the county. And so that was the parcel that was kind of determined based on those conversations. Mike, do you want to jump in on that, or?
Yeah, it was done through Doug Powell, and there was many site meetings, and they actually came out and delineated where they actually wanted the park. So that's that's how that was determined. I didn't just make it up.
Okay. Do we have someone from Parks? Chuck, is he on the line?
Yeah, this is Chuck
Sure.
Hines. Yeah. So Doug Powell hasn't been with Parks for, my gosh, 7 or 8 years now, maybe longer. So a lot of that institutional knowledge is probably gone. And, I trust that, there were many site visits, but I don't have a record of any of that. And our cultural resources staff, I'm hoping Cheryl Spicer is on the call this morning, but I don't see her. I did invite her.
She's
to.
here in person. She's
Oh,
here in
she's
person.
here in person. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would defer to her to specify the exact area that we would want to adequately protect this resource.
Hi, good morning. I'm Cheryl Spicer, Cultural Resources Manager.
Come up here.
Oh,
Yeah, do you-
okay.
Can you all hear Cheryl?
Hi. Oh, no, I wanted to.
Yeah, I can hear her just fine.
Okay.
Okay, great. Hi. I didn't realize we could be virtual. So, good morning. What can I tell you? Originally, this property had 6 to 8 acres that included the quarry core and sensitive buffer that was originally identified, but because this area has never been excavated, it is in an ideal situation to have an opportunity to excavate and explore the entire property would be ideal to it. But what we're looking at is a incredibly rich cultural resource for the county, an archaeological one, as well as a cultural one that will focus on the indigenous populations early in the county that takes us from a prehistoric period all the way to the present. To start.
So I guess, what does that mean for, this application? Would that be something that would need to happen before they move forward? Because we really need to delineate that, what the area of dedication would be.
So what I would like to do is just to confer with our senior archaeologist on staff. We're just coming back from vacation and are in summer camp to revisit how expansive that area is going to be past the 6 to original 8 acres that we had originally identified.
Okay. Do you know how big that hash?
Approximately an acre, I think.
Okay.
It was determined whenever the archaeologists came out to look at the site, and there was many of them there, that it was graded, and they took the sites that was not graded. And that's how the hash mark area was determined.
You're saying that was the area that was not previously disturbed? Is that what?
Correct. All the rest of it has been disturbed.
No, I've been out to the site for the NRI and stuff, so I kind of know what you're talking about.
But I'm glad to, meet with you guys out at the site again.
Yeah, sorry, I was quiet there. I was just opening up the drawing on my computer, or the actual CAD file on my computer. So it is about 1.08 acres is the area that's delineated for the conveyance or for the dedication. And Mike is correct. That's sort of like the only remaining portion of that property that hasn't been developed or graded or, have a driveway or, house or some sort of structure sitting on it. If you go north of that to where I have lot 6 located, that's all, currently used as a pasture there. And then going east of that area, where the cul-de-sac is located and then the other lots there, that's all, there's a large stable and riding pen, and, various riding, horse riding, paddocks and whatnot. So that's all been fairly disturbed. And actually, I don't know if you can go to the existing conditions map, which is sheet 3. So it's, I guess technically speaking, it's 07 PREL project number -003.
What do you see?
Yeah, there you go. So if you kind of zoom in
What
to
do you
that
see?
area. Hello?
Hey, whoever is not, well, anyone other than the applicant's engineer, please mute your phone or computer.
I muted the person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you see there the gravel drive on the southern portion there, the 2-story wood structure, and then just north of that is the is kind of the open space with some grass. That's roughly the area that's intended to be conveyed. That's sort of the last remaining non-developed part of that property. And you can see all the other buildings and everything on there. So I hope that answers, it kind of clears that up.
Yeah, I guess I think the best course of action is to just meet with park staff once they can coordinate with their archaeologist and possibly do a site visit just to make sure everyone's on the has the same idea moving forward.
Okay, and I guess we'll coordinate that directly or sometime after this meeting and get that going. So that's fine. I don't want to belabor this since we only have a few minutes left. I'd like to talk also about the density calculations comment, because that's the only other one that I think is really maybe pressing at this point, because that could change the design fairly significantly. When I was just looking at this again this morning, and I understand it to be 1/5. So for the RC, which is the zone that we're in, the density needs to be 1 unit per 5 acres of usable land. That's what I'm looking at the document here for the optional method.
Yeah, the key is the usable land.
Right. So then I look at the usable land definition, and it specifically says the usable area upon which it's a blah, blah, blah. All land indicated on the master plan of highways as a right of way of 100 feet in width or more. So that needs to be subtracted. And then all land within areas within environmental buffers exceeding 50% of the site. So I guess what I'm unclear about is, I mean, while there is, the stream over on the eastern side that kind of goes from, the narrowest point there, why wouldn't we treat this entire site as usable land? I mean, we're dedicating a fair amount of it as open space. We're dedicating a fair amount of it to the county. We're really only building in the western kind of portion, or I guess the northwestern portion there. So, and there's a foot strip on the other side of the Pepco right of way that's not actually included in the right of way calculations, but it's or the density calculations, but it is part of what gets conveyed to lots 4, 5, and 6. So I guess if I could just get some clarification on that, because this could take this site from a 6-lot subdivision to potentially a 2 or 3, which then becomes, I mean, you basically are losing a tremendous amount of value in this land.
Well, I guess the first question is, are the buffers here greater than 50% of the tract?
No, I don't believe they are, but I mean, I'd have to go back and 100% check that, but no.
I don't think.
Well, I mean, that's in the definition of usable area. That's kind of
It's the threshold.
yeah, it's a threshold issue. So if you're not, if it's not more than 50% of your property, then that usable area, you would be looking at the entire property minus.
Yeah, I guess I need to. Well, I don't want to say without triple checking here, but I'm fairly confident it's not more than 50%, because it really is the area to the east, and it's the smallest portion of the property. That being said, I don't want to sit here in a public meeting and say something erroneously, so I'm just going to caveat that by saying we'll go back and check. But outside of that, there really is no reason why that density calculation can't be used. I mean, am I correct on that or not?
I mean, if the buffer is less than 50% of the tract, then you're okay. Mm-hmm. If it's more, then I would have to break out my crystal ball, which I don't have. To find out why usable area was defined that way. And that's,
well,
it is what it is.
I guess and I'm not trying to cut you off, but maybe I said it wrong. My point is that I believe this site falls within that definition, but I guess what I'm asking is, how do I need to put the number on the plan or whatever that area is of the environmental buffer? How is it that I can convey that appropriately on the plan to satisfy this comment?
It should be part of your data table. If you look at chapter 59, basically take the data table that's in there and plot that on your plan. And then there's a line item for usable area within that data table. And you would want to, your buffers are going to be delineated on the plan. And you would need to show, whether the usable area issue has been, if it's 50%, then,
I'm looking.
you're looking at fewer lots. If it's less than 50%, then you just have to make sure everything works and listen to whatever.
I'm opening up the NRI as well here, because I think it.
I'm going to say the NRI is already done. This should not be new information.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And I think the data table on the FCP might have that information, like the acreage of stream buffer, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that now. So the width of buffer is 150 feet. And let's see. So stand 2 forested stream buffer 0.82 acres, stand 3 forested stream buffer 0.55 acres. Non-forested stream buffer 5.23, total stream buffer area 6.6 acres. So which is certainly less than 50%. So I guess that was my question was, would that I mean, is there something I'm missing? I guess is what I'm getting at in terms of why we can't do the 1 unit per 5 acres.
Without talking to Ryan directly, I can't tell you exactly why I made that comment. But maybe there was just a miscommunication, or, he was looking at different numbers. So I would just, when he gets back, coordinate with him. Because
Okay.
Standing.
All right, that's fair. I just wanted to make sure I understood that, because I felt like I might have maybe was missing something, but I guess I think maybe the key is that I didn't fully convey this information on the plan. So I think I'll update the plan. I'll certainly have a conversation, but I'll update the plan to include the NRI, information in buffer information, so that it'll be clear when the reviewer looks at it that it's, what we're looking at.
Yeah, and that may be the issue at hand, is he just didn't see the information. So
okay.
Lack of information, from our end, we're better off just making the comment.
Understood.
So it's
okay.
not hitting you later.
Okay, and then I know we only have like 7 minutes left here, but I had one final question that I have, and Mike, please jump in if you have anything that you want to bring up. There was one other comment. I'm just looking through here real quick. Regarding the septic plan. So it says denied. I think the issue there is that there was inadvertently, and I take responsibility for it, an older version or maybe a changed version of the septic plan that was shown. And the reality is we have no intention of changing the septic plan that was approved. The approved septic plan is what should be presented on the plan, and I'll go back and make sure that it fully is presented on the plan. I guess I overlooked that. So I want to make sure that that's clear. But my concern is that it says denied. I don't want that to, I'd like to be able to, have that change to approved once we make that change, or I update the plans to reflect that. Is that
Yeah, I don't know if Jason Fleming or anybody from Well and Septic is on the line.
I am, yeah. Jason Fleming here. So I understand what you just said about the approved septic plan. So and that, yes, I could agree to that. But the other issue would be the forest I think it's the forest conservation plan, maybe calling it the wrong thing, but it appears as if the septic areas on it are different than the approved septic plan. And I think one of the reasons that is because of the buffer being different. So that would have to get resolved.
okay? All right. Well, let me. All right. That's fair. I understand that. I guess what I'll say is it's the intention of this plan not to change it unless we have to, in which case we will work through getting that resolved with you. But the plan is to keep the approved septic plan that was done in 2018, and to whatever extent we can maintain that, we will. And but obviously, if we have to change it, we will also do that. All right. Well, that's all the comments or questions I have. I appreciate it. Mike, do you want to say anything else?
I only have a couple comments basically, and that was one of the comments was a circular street basically, and again, the Parks Department requested the cul-de-sac be put in because the Parks Department owns land on the western side of the power lines, and they were planning to purchase lot 4 or lot 6 or lot 5, either one or maybe both, and they wanted access to the soapstones quarry, which they we're thinking about putting a trailhead in, future trailhead in, and trails and stuff like that. And that's why the plan evolved like it did. It was originally designed to be, the whole driveway was circular, but the Parks Department requested that we put a cul-de-sac in.
That would be an odd request that the Parks Department would think that they, I guess have the authority or jurisdiction to make that without speaking with us.
Well, that's also the reason that the driveway is on the eastern side of the property, because we originally had it on the western side and they did not want us to put the driveway and the circular driveway all the way around because it isolates the soapstone quarry. This is all driven by the Parks Department. I mean, if things have changed, then so be it.
Sure.
Is there any communication in writing to all this? Because that would be really helpful, I think, to all of us.
Is Dominic still with the Parks Department?
Well, he's over in Prince George's right now, but he's not with.
He was completely involved with it too. I would have to check, but I'm sure we have some kind of.
Brenda Sandberg was.
Brenda Sandberg was also involved, yes.
So she may have some information.
Yeah.
I work closely with Barbara on it.
Yeah, this is Chuck Hines. Yeah, we're going to have to regroup on our end and figure out who was involved in this project way back when. But like I said, Doug Powell hasn't been with Parks for 7 years. So those conversations took place a long, long time ago, at least in terms of my involvement in regulatory review. So, yeah, we need to regroup and figure out who said what and when. And
they actually made offers for purchasing a portion of the land and stuff like that.
Well, that I do know for a fact. Yes, we did make offers that were not accepted. Yes, I do know that much.
Sure. Well, look, if we're going to subdivide the property, I mean, I'm sure we can figure something out. I think we just have to better understand what it is that Parks is expecting. And then
maybe it all starts with the Parks Department coming out for a site visit and.
Yeah, we'll have more clarity on what exactly we're recommending when we know better what the park's expectations are. So
the one other issue is sidewalks. On Saturday, I drove all the way up and down Edmore Road as far as it goes, and there is no sidewalks whatsoever on Edmore Road. So, and
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But the road, Edmore Road is due to be widened, and when I put the sidewalks in, they're just going to tear it up anyway. So.
Yeah, you have to coordinate with Brett.
Yeah, our board's been very clear, though. They're going to require something, whether it's fee in lieu or construction of a sidewalk. So we can talk further about that.
And there is a policy document about the option to do fee in lieu. But that's something you should definitely coordinate with, or you're the reviewer, right?
Yeah.
With Brett.
Yeah, we've had an extensive conversation with the board about this over the last year or two, particularly the last year, and they're very clear on recent projects. There's.
It would seem silly to me. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? I think we're up on time here.
No, I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you for taking the time this morning.
Yeah, great. Thank you both.
Okay.
Very nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Point person
Sure.
with Parks,
Yes.
and then he will get the
Is
folks.
he going to contact me or should I contact him?
Right. I'm going to put you in touch with Henry Coppola, who's taking over regulatory review for Parks. So he will be your point of contact moving forward.
Okay, can I get his contact information? Or is he going to contact me?
I think Chuck can send you the contact info, right?
Yeah, I can do that.
So you get it.
Thank you, everybody.
Chuck
Yeah.
and Henry.
Sandy Spring Missing Middle project. Continuing our theme from the first meeting, we're having weird technical problems in the DRC room, so we're running the meeting from my laptop and not from the speakerphone dealio. So we hope that everyone can hear okay. All right, so we have people here from the Up County Planning Division. Is the applicants team on the call? Not a good sign.
No.
We're not seeing the applicants team on the list of attendees right now.
That's an issue.
I don't know if I see them on the invite even.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, do we know who we're looking for?
Bob Dalrymple, Dave Ager. Someone from AMT.
Hello, just returning the phone call. Hello.
All right, stand by, everyone. We're trying to figure out where they are.
Hi. Yes, I'm in the middle of the year. Okay, yeah. Yep. No, that's fine. No, you do have it. Okay, good. Yeah, we've had some technical difficulties here this morning, so I apologize. I was just making sure, was this someone from the applicant team or not, so.
To Bob Dalrymple, Dave Ager.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, take care.
Where'd you find out, Patrick?
IT here?
Was that?
That was Matt Gordon. He does have the invite and he's sending it around. So he was saying that they're not able, they didn't have it. They weren't able to join, but now they have it. They're going to be on here in a minute.
Okay, I don't know if everyone could hear Patrick, but he just talked with Matt Gordon and he said they do have the invite now and they're going to be joining in a second.
Good morning, everybody. This is Atik Panshir from DPS. One request, is it possible for speakers to turn on their camera so we know who's talking instead of kind of not knowing who's talking?
Sure, that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm Neil Bronstein. I'm sitting in for Christina Sorrento. We're in the room down here on the second floor, and we're trying to get this going.
There we go. There's Matt.
And now we have Matt Gordon.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay. The applicant team seems to be coming on now.
Hey, Neil.
Morning.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even realize that. Usually I just assumed we had the invite and we were going through the comments this morning, and for some reason I guess we just never got it.
Yeah, I would have expected you to have it. I'm not sure what that was about.
I think just going to make sure everybody else is on from our side, but we won't take up too much time, so we can still, I think, fit within our window.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Just take a moment. Apologies again. We thought you were on the invite as well and just realized here that you were not. So apologies for that. We've had a little bit of a technical difficulty this morning. Appreciate you guys jumping on. Just take a moment and see if you have everybody here. And while you're doing that, I'll also just say, I think in general, the agencies may have been a little bit confused based on the plans as to what exactly you were asking for and what type of approval you needed from everyone. So if you could just take a few moments to explain for all the reviewers, what it is you're proposing and how you represented that on the sheets, I think that would probably clear up a lot of confusion, and then people can better fill in comments, or if they've left like open-ended comments or some questions, I just think that'll be helpful for everybody to hear.
Sure. Yeah. And I know Patrick and some of the Up County team had the benefit of a lot of the history because we had filed a concept plan. And so I guess just to take a step back, the project is the combination of townhouse duplex units through the MPDU optional method, R60 zone, but portions of the property are covered by an old cluster method subdivision where there's some townhouses and single family detached dwellings. So there's amendments that are being processed, and my guess is they'll probably be accepted through intake maybe this week, where we're removing portions of property from the prior approvals so that they can be incorporated into this new project. So that may be where some of the confusion is, because we're retaining, which they don't show up on this plan that's on the screen right now. To the north, there's 11 single family detached dwelling units that we're kind of retaining as part of this new plan, that we're not really doing anything to those units, but they'll be part of the plan. I think there's some open space that we're showing there. So there's a lot of moving pieces with the historical approval that was for like 60 units, and we're utilizing sort of some excess land where there's density rights available to create minimum of 25% MPDUs and sort of a missing middle typology with these different types of units that we don't see that often in the county.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. That was helpful to understand, because I know we don't have the triplex approved yet in the code, and so I think that that label and some other issues were sort of throwing us off. In addition to the area you're describing to the north, because in some ways it's like, is it part of the plan? Is it not part of the plan? It just wasn't clear what. And then I definitely saw the reference to the open space and reconfiguration, et cetera. So are you proposing to reconfigure those lots?
Not the lots themselves, but the open space. Dave, can you talk about that? Just sort of that in where the single family detached houses are.
Sure. Just to clarify, this is the area we're talking about.
Yes.
The FCP is the only sheet that shows that additional area.
Yeah, this is Dave Ager from Townscape. Yeah, that's correct. What we are doing, those lots, if you look at the record plat today, those lots all touch each other in the rear. And they were approved as part of the original cluster plan back in the early 1980s. So they're included in this plan because we're extracting unused density under the MPDU optional method. And under that method, there's a 20% open space requirement. And our proposal and our concept plan, which we carried forward in this preliminary plan, calls for a large open space, creation of open space, I should say, in the interior of that block. And so it's somewhat highlighted. It's a little hard to see on this because what we've highlighted is the tree protection area, but it generally follows the open space. So the interior of the block is new common open space, and there's a smaller portion of common open space in the called the missing middle portion, the southern portion of the site.
Hey, Dave, one question. You said you are not planning on reconfiguring those lots because
No, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, the lots, the rears of, let me try and clarify that. Generally speaking, the fronts of the lots don't change, the sides don't change, but the rear become smaller so that we can aggregate the majority of the portions of the rear yards into one larger public open space parcel. And there are a couple of connections, sidewalk connections to get into that area. And the other thing too is that there's some existing play equipment in that area as well that HIC had provided on each individual lot that will be part of the overall, be within that new public parcel or open space parcel.
Okay, that was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
So we'll do. A lot of the comments were on formatting, and we understand we need to be much clearer about that portion of what's being pulled out of those old approvals to be included in this new optional method MPDU project. We'll show that much more clearly when we resubmit the plans, and then those amendments that will run alongside this. They should be coming soon to staff. You'll get them through intake, guys, and probably in the next week or so.
Okay, and that's a preliminary plan and site plan amendment, right?
Yes. So that's sort of the high level, and we'll clarify the unit types and all when we do the development standards chart. Jonathan, we'll put it in the format that you asked for, and we'll clean all that up. But from a design perspective, I think we would want to set up meetings on sort of two issues or two kind of categories of issues. And there were some transportation comments. So we'd like to meet with Billy Whalen and Chris Van Alstyne and others to talk about the driveway access points and some alternatives that we may have for that in terms of the distance between 108 and where we have the sort of the private street or the driveway that's coming in. And then for Chris's benefit, we were working with Lauren Campbell through the concept plan process. And so there were like a number of issues that we had sort of worked with her on to resolve and clarify relating to Sky Meadow Way. So we have some emails. So we'll make sure that we send that over to you to look at in terms of the right of way, because the master plan has some distinctions on business district versus a residential street. It changes, so we can send that over. And then the last one on sort of transportation oriented issues for the shared use path on 108, we can look at that when we set up that meeting to see if we can shift it to address any of those comments that you may have.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated. Thank you, Matt. And honestly, the biggest I have, particularly that rear portion of residential, that would still qualify for.
Confuse you.
Would qualify as a subdivision, and if we were doing that, then the big question is we would need to do frontage improvements. So that's namely sidewalks and additional right-of-way dedication. So if that's the idea that we are adjusting lot lines back there, then that would still see it as a subdivision that would require additional road dedication, sidewalk improvement. So that's honestly the big thing that I see.
This is Dave Ager. I don't know, Matt, if you want to respond to that, but I just wanted to. My recollection is we discussed that that comment came up during the concept level, and these homes are relatively close to the street already. The street's a tertiary residential road, and there's street trees and that sort of thing located along the road. So the dedication seemed to be challenging to do. Sidewalk improvements, if they could be within an easement, would be less challenging. There are impacts to existing trees that would result and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to, we kind of heard you then, and I thought we discussed it, that it was not really necessarily a feasible option. And I thought hopefully that we had a way to, kind of come to a middle ground on any improvements in that area. But anyway, that was just my thought I had, I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, we had looked at it. We were going to see if, I mean, I think you would potentially make them non-conforming, those lots. And we had looked at whether we could do an easement or make improvements to the, maximum extent practical. And I think the way we had left things with Patrick and the rest of the team was that we could solve for this at the time of preliminary site plan, but that this wasn't going to be imposed on us. Like, this was a brand new subdivision, new development for these existing lots, that we were going to work out a solution that made the missing middle and all the MPDUs that we're proposing on the other parcel feasible. But we can talk about that, I guess, because we're gonna have to set up a meeting, Chris, on some of these other design issues, so we can look at it in closer detail with you.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think the important thing is that we get the frontage improvements, and then however we dedication or easement or whatever it is, I think that's the important thing is getting improvements.
Okay.
So we can work and find some sort of solution to, not create more problems. That's what I got.
Okay. And then the other sort of major topic that we had is probably more Jonathan, the comments from on the lotting. So we want to set up a meeting to work with you on that, in terms of if there's two lots, under the subdivision regulations that do not front on a public or private street, can we meet the criteria on that? And then also on the flag lots that you had identified, we think we have a solution for that, an alternative if we can't, meet the criteria that would allow for those lots to be approved. But we think it would be helpful if we set up a Teams meeting with you and kind of just walk through it, and we can propose some alternatives on these issues. But I guess this sort of internal, that will go along with what we end up doing on the two driveway entrance points to this internal private street. If that gets modified, I think that impacts the lotting as well. So we should probably look at that holistically.
Okay.
And then Dave, was there any other technical you wanted to highlight?
I think Matt summarized it pretty well, that we're going to have to look at the transportation issues kind of first, and then that will inform how we're going to resolve the lotting issues. And we want to walk through all that with you. So we just want to get that clarified first. I do have just a general question. I don't know if it's a technical question or not, but there was a comment about the architecture hadn't been updated. Did you need to see? We sent you, I think, Aaron, correct me, but I think we sent you the concept plan architecture, and this has changed slightly. Do you want us to resubmit updated architecture as a part of this package? Or can we talk through that? We're engaging with architects presently, just trying to think about the timing and what's a critical path for us from our perspective.
I mean, you will provide elevations as part of your site plan. They have to be shown on the certified set.
Okay.
I saw the conceptual kind of 3D renderings. Those are great from visualizing it. But we do still need elevations consistent with what you're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
And then is there a sort of schedule or calendar that we can work off of in terms of resubmittals? We may end up just foregoing whatever the first resubmittal is to work with staff on some of these issues to make sure when we do resubmit that we're fully addressing the comments.
Yeah, I can send you the typical 120-day clock. The only kind of outlier is the amendments that are still pending acceptance. Can't really say when those are going to be accepted, but those are going to need to go concurrently with these applications.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I don't think those are necessarily going to DRC because they're really they're not substantive changes. They're more or less, on paper changes where we're just showing the properties being removed and that we can continue to comply with those old R6D cluster method standards. So in other words, I think those probably move faster than these applications in terms from a review perspective. So I'm not concerned about those slowing us down.
Okay, to be honest, I don't recall what was on the checklist, but whatever is shown on the checklist is the process that we're going to end up following.
I think when I spoke with Sandra, she said that we wouldn't need DRC, but we'll double check. Okay, well, we'll reach out, Jonathan. I assume you're the point person, right? Are that right in terms of?
Yes and no. Philip Estes is the point for site plan. I'm the point for subdivision, but just CC both of it. Keep us both in the loop so that we can coordinate. But you can email whoever you'd like.
We'll email both of you, and we'll copy Chris and Billy where necessary on the transportation end of things. But we'd like to get these meetings set up, when your schedules permit, so that we can get moving on addressing all the comments. Which I think we're confident we can address everything. It's just some more coordination is needed.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, I just wanted to request if you can please, when you have a meeting for discussing transportation issues, please include the DPS right away as well. It's a concurrent site and preliminary plan, so we need to be in that meeting as well. Thank you.
Sure, Sam. Happy to do it.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Hey, this is WSC. Do you have anything for us? Because I saw that there's a lot of critical comments from us, but I think moving all this lot, our comment can be resolved because it's about clearance between our structures and what you are proposing.
Dave, did you look at, or Aaron or Dave, those comments?
I saw the comments regarding the separation, and we'll work with you on it. I haven't had a chance to get in there and play with them, but we did see the comment, and we'll address it and coordinate with you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. 1 second. All right, let's try that again. Great. Good morning, everybody. This is the DRC meeting for Chaberton Solar, Santa Rosa. Hopefully that's Chaberton Solar. I am Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And your lead reviewer is Jonathan Casey. Thank you for bringing up the plan, Jonathan, although I am seeing just the...
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Okay. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. I'm going to first ask Jonathan to highlight any of the larger issues we should discuss and then really turn it over to the applicant. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. So once Jonathan pulls up the plan, I'll ask him to get started.
One's E-plans coordinates me with me.
Do you want to do introductions while we're waiting?
Sure, we can go ahead and do intro.
I'm Françoise Carrier. I'm the applicant's land use counsel with the law firm of Redmond, Burbridge, Schwartz, and Gilday.
I'm Ryan Boswell, development director with Chaberton Solar Santa Rosa.
I'm Jenny Anderson. I'm a civil engineer with Century Engineering.
Pete Mellitz, engineer with Century Engineering.
I already introduced myself.
I'm Jonathan Casey, lead reviewer for the preliminary plan, even though there is no preliminary plan. I'm standing in for Philip today, who is the site plan reviewer. You're a little confused, right?
I was. There's too many reviewers. I didn't quite know what to do with that.
I'm Jeff Silver. I'm with Buck County.
Hi, Brett Brown, transportation planner.
Hi, Alexandra Dupre, regulatory planner of Buck County.
Kristen Alstein, Up County Transportation.
Johnson, environmental reviewer for this project.
Yeah, Patrick Butler, Up County Division Chief.
Okay, go ahead and get started, Jonathan.
All right. I think the comments are pretty straightforward. I know I had a couple of comments about screening. I guess the big question here is there an alternative for a style of solar?
Why would you want an alternative?
It has its benefits, but it does create more or less a giant basketball field.
Impervious surface.
When you say alternative, are you referring to not at grade, something being elevated off the ground? Is that what you're referring to?
We have a similar project like
Hillcrest.
And yeah,
something that you could essentially plant like pollinator species under, and it would help eliminate some of the stormwater management. So did you have on site? One from a water quality perspective, but also pollinator species it's kind of like the standard with solar. The code right now doesn't really identify the different styles of solar, and this is a first.
It's a fairly new technology.
Yeah,
I've done a little research. Obviously, there are some benefits to it, but it comes with unusual challenges from a planning standpoint.
See, I thought it was a fabulous thing because it's practically invisible.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits.
And on structures, it's not it's not an enormous tall structure anyway, but there's a much bigger visibility issue, and there is one neighbor who is complaining, although there's very substantial vegetation between her property and the site.
Yeah, I mean there are lower panels that are only a couple of feet off the ground. I think Fieldcrest, the max height on the panels was like 6 feet. Top.
Yeah, that's pretty standard, right? For the
on average, yeah, 6 feet.
So you have enough space beneath to plant a pollinator species, or at least some kind of vegetation, and then still get the benefit of the solar. Where this, from what I've read, essentially kind of like a slab.
Yeah,
You may not be prepared to respond to this right here and now, since this is brand new, so you shouldn't feel that you have to. If you have an initial response.
And this is your meeting. I'm just.
Well, it wasn't in the written comments, so we're really glad to know that this is an issue.
Is it an issue, concern, recommendation, suggestion?
Or requirement?
Yeah.
It is not a requirement.
Yeah, we'd like to talk again. Like I think the heartburn we're having is more than anything else is the imperviousness and the fact that it is, it very much reads like a parking lot. If someone was saying, hey, we want to go put this parking lot in our backyard, I think we'd have a lot of heartburn over that and want to, discourage that. Admittedly, we're conflicted because this is a solar project. Like we would typically be saying, yeah, let's do this. But the way it's being done is a first for us. So I think everyone's feeling a little uncomfortable, whereas typically we would be saying, yes, let's do this. And here's some other things we would love for you to do. Admittedly, we're just feeling not as, not as warm and fuzzy about this solar project at the moment. And it's more raising questions than, than support at this standpoint. But all that being said, we'd love to talk about other, solar types that we could do here, a different style of project. Like this Fieldcrest is one that we think is a really good example of something we've done recently. I think Jonathan and Mark were just saying it's completed, it's up, it's looks beautiful, and I think we have, we feel pretty good about that project as an example of something we'd like to see. Can we do portions of it, this project like this, portions of this like Fieldcrest? I mean, I don't know. I think we're just in a very beginning part of a conversation to know how ultimately we feel about this. But I think not saying anything now would not do you any favors. So,
location of Fieldcrest. Do you have a crossroads?
Fieldcrest Road and 108. Okay. Conveniently, Suli Cho is the attorney.
Oh, well, that is convenient.
You should be able to get in touch with.
She's my colleague.
Okay.
What was that other one that we worked on over?
Cedar Ridge Community Church. That's off Spencerville Road.
Okay.
Theirs is kind of back behind their building. They were also mounted on like a rail system with driven pilings.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could talk about the advantages.
Yeah, so we actually arrived at this particular technology as an alternative to the kind of structure that you're talking about. And it was in response to a community engagement effort. So we talked to the surrounding neighbors. And the first concern that was raised with that traditional approach is the visual impact. And so that was what we initially had contemplated, but through some corroboration and collaboration with the neighbors, we arrived at this very low profile earthos system in order to alleviate those concerns.
Yeah, I've spent a good bit of time looking at earthos website. There are definitely some positives. I think in more arid climates, this is definitely the way to go. But here, where we have quite a bit of rainfall, the other style does tend to be a little bit more torn.
Yeah, I mean, this has fewer impacts in a sense because you don't need to drive pilings to hold up these big structures.
And there's maintenance. Having a Roomba go by and clean the entire thing is quite convenient.
I would say too, one of the additional advantages, the steel piles are caught up in many of the supply chain constraints that the entire globe is facing. So the efficiency of constructing something like this not only is better in terms of the timeline to an active community solar project, but it also allows, as you're kind of alluding to, a much more dense concentration of power. So from a land use perspective, you're getting much more community solar per acre with a technology like Earthos.
Yeah. So what does it rest on then? I mean, what exactly? Because there's got to be like I mean, I imagine they're still flat, and then there would be grading underneath all of these to make it flat, and then what does it rest on?
So, you want to respond?
I just wanted to respond to the grading comment. It does conform, there's minimal grading as we conform to the grade that's out there now. So with respect to grading, there's not a large cut and fill. The structural capacity or the components, I should say, of Earthos is they have a small framework underneath, and that is affixed to the ground through there are small footings that.
Like concrete or what's
It's a concrete ballast around the perimeter, and then there's a lattice of steel cables that essentially elevate the panels slightly off the ground.
And that's what gives it its flexibility to shape to the grade that's out there.
Are the panels flush to one another, or is there a space in between them?
There's actually approximately 1/8 of an inch between panels, so it's not an entirely impervious surface.
So does it allow the rainwater to go through that 1/8 of an inch, or what happens when it rains?
You will, of course, have some that collects on the panels, but it does infiltrate between the gaps in the panels.
Isn't there essentially a gutter system underneath?
I believe there is on the perimeter on that ballast. There's a channel that helps to guide that way.
That is not other specs.
Sure, we can provide specs.
Yeah, I think it was in terms of imperviousness closer to 90 or 92 or 93%. But for stormwater calculations, to be conservative, we showed them as 100% impervious.
There's a little.
There is a little bit that will straight through.
Is there anything to be done to allow more water to infiltrate through? Change the gutter system or something? Or is it just that 1/8 of an inch is just a really small space?
It's the latter. We had talked about initially the option of maybe spacing them out to put, ballast wells or swales in between them to help with some of the stormwater management or rainwater. So that could be also an option that we revisit as well to help that, as opposed to locating the stormwater features kind of all in that existing natural channel that it shows now.
And another thing was that you're using existing vegetation and the stormwater as for your screening requirement.
In one area, we are enhancing it. We're adding vegetation as well on the north side.
We initially were looking to utilize the stormwater plantings as screening, but we pulled it back after our initial conversation. So we're not counting those towards screening anymore. Yeah.
So then like I said, we're enhancing some locations where it's thin on the north side, as you see there, and then of course on the south side, it's clearly visible where we're adding screening on the south.
So you can see on the south, there's extensive screening.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I imagine that's where our comments are coming from.
And there was a comment from Phil saying that we needed to comply completely with the option A, screening. We discussed this at a pre-filing meeting with a number of people. It's very difficult for a solar project to function with the full option A screening.
Yeah, to the south of it.
Right, to the south, which is the major sun exposure. So what we saw in the SOJ, I'm sure we've asked to modify that. We replaced, Jennifer, can you, I forget what you replaced.
We replaced one big tree with 2 evergreens. And as you can see, there are still some kind of staggered, but we've modified those slightly.
I think we did something similar on Fieldcrest for a section or 2. I don't remember the exact details, but I remember at the very least discussing modified screening one section because obviously shade trees, solar.
Right.
Exactly the best place.
We also made them plant a lot. So in granting that modified planting along the southern edge, we made them beef up further planting.
Yeah, it was not a 1-for-1 type deal.
But But the thing that differs on the side is that there was a lot of stream buffer as well.
Yeah. Right, we obviously don't have that.
Then I had a question about, were you using existing screening along the rear? Existing?
Yes. Yeah, along the rear, it's existing.
50 foot plus or
And
minus.
if you, I'm sure you can see the sort of bubble shape of the
Yeah.
existing vegetation, and it's shown in more detail, obviously, on the NRI.
I think we probably need to look at the existing vegetation and just make sure that it can, do exactly what the standard is.
Right.
If there's zero evergreens back there, issue in the winter when trees are without leaves.
We were just discussing that this morning, in light of the fact that a neighbor has, raised an objection. Chaperton did reach out to all the neighbors, and it was, mostly a good positive reception. And I think it may be it's a fairly recent development that this neighbor became concerned. Apparently, she thought the solar was going to be connected to her house or on her property. So you can imagine that you would be concerned about that. So hopefully the visual impact is now her only concern, and she understands the rest was not something to worry about.
I would add, we've been engaging these neighbors since approximately this time last year. We've had very thorough interactions with neighbors on either side of the south and the north, ongoing, very, very fruitful relationships. This objection wasn't for lack of reaching out to contact the neighbor, but the engagement just came here late in the game.
So before we, I don't want to run out of, I don't want to fail to touch on other issues, but in our time available. We're going to meet with Maria Baugh to talk about the quiet access issue. In the locations they have allowed access to the power cutoff, which is right near the entrance. So we're hoping that we can explain that to Marie, and she'll be comfortable with that. There was also DPS and Hardy raised a question of a commercial driveway. The only vehicles that will be coming here after construction are like pickup trucks. So we again will have to talk to him because we don't see a reason for a commercial driveway. For that, we expect one maintenance trip a month. So it's very light traffic. It seems like a commercial driveway would change the visual appearance for no reason. Yes.
Pardon me.
Sure.
On that point, what happens if there's a hailstorm? Sections of this flat panel solar get damaged. How do they place it? Do they bring in a flatbed, something bigger than a pickup truck?
I think during the construction period, there may be large vehicles transporting panels, but we wouldn't anticipate significant enough damage that would require a flatbed for future, maintenance of any storm-related damage.
I was thinking more like, in the case of a massive hailstorm, which you get periodically, replacing, let's say there's a section of panel that is just shattered. To replace that, what do they bring in to bring the new paneling in, take the old paneling out? Is it a long way flatbed? Is it, because here we assume that most visits will be made with a pickup truck. Right? But what about the flatbed? Standard residential. Something else is needed.
Yeah, I think in the event of some catastrophic damage, there may be an occasion for a flatbed. It's hard to plan for that, but depending on the scope of the damage, it could be more like a large moving truck, box truck.
No cranes.
No cranes required, neither during construction nor any future maintenance.
Well, I can actually tell you that a flatbed can fit in most residential driveways. There's a roofing company that delivers on flatbed. They have a truck-mounted crane, and it fits perfectly within the driveway.
The forklift?
No, it's a roofing.
Oh, the roofing where they run it up.
This is literally they bring in a flatbed, and they actually use the crane to put it on top, so you don't even have to have
Sam, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you, Christina. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I think what Doug said is part of our concern is for construction, probably we need some larger trucks to come in and construct their solar panels. Also for maintenance, I mean, with the solar field of this size, we kind of anticipated that perhaps a larger truck, perhaps a SU-30, would be needed to come in occasionally for the maintenance of it. That's why we require the commercial driveway entrance, because commercial driveway, as the name basically states, is for commercial purposes. So again, that's something that we need to discuss further with the applicant and see exactly what is the right size of the truck that would be needed, even occasionally, for the maintenance part.
Okay. Marie, did you want to say something about Francois's comment about fire access?
So fire department access is going to depend on whether you need building permits for this or not, because I know that the old style, the building permits hinged on the foundations, and this has a completely different foundation design. I've put the question forward to Rick Merck and Crystal Maddox over at Commercial Building, but I have not heard back from them. Francois, you might want to pursue that. If you are required to have building permits to construct the solar field, you must meet fire department access, and we can sit down and talk about that. But I think the first question is, do you need building permits or not?
Okay, well, thanks for that. I'll definitely follow up with DPS about the building permit issue. And I guess if we need building permits, then we'd like to talk about what level of access is necessary.
So for me, we'll have to give me an operational pad inside the gates. So I don't know if that would be expanding the fence or reducing the footprint of your panel system, but I think that would be good to sit down and have a meeting outside of this forum to spell that out.
Yep. All right. That sounds good. Thank you.
Actually, the Cedar Ridge had a fire compliant T turnaround, I think.
Yeah, we don't have room for that on this site.
Sue was the attorney on that one also.
By operational pad, are you referring to your T turnaround?
Not necessarily. If your dead end is less than 150 feet long, the operational pad could just be a 20 by 60 foot spot just inside the gate. But I don't know what the dimensions are for this driveway, but you would be required to do a fire department access driveway, which is a 35-foot apron. So that plays into this too.
Yeah, we'd like to go ahead and have a meeting subsequent to this to discuss all those items.
Yep, send me an email. We'll set something up.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Another issue we noticed is the sidewalk issue, and we're going to have to, we'll need another meeting to talk about the sidewalk issue. We feel it would be inappropriate to put a little section of sidewalk here that is not connecting to any other sidewalk or any activity area. We also believe that the owner, who is the landlord, is not going to want a sidewalk. Putting in a sidewalk would require taking out 2 specimen trees. Apparently, he's very attached to his trees. So that could jeopardize the whole project if we had to actually build a sidewalk. So Chris will be in touch.
Yeah, Brett will be the.
Oh, we'll do Brett. Sorry, Brett. It's just a habit. I did see your name on the comments.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard some of our recent planning board hearings, but in case you haven't, the board is very likely, well, they're going to require a sidewalk or they're going to require a fee in lieu. And so something will be required. The very strong preference is for that sidewalk to go in, and there have been some incredibly pointed and tough conversations, so just be prepared for that.
I'm prepared for pointed and tough.
Yeah.
This section of road is, I'm sure you all have seen it, it's rural section. There's no sidewalk anywhere near it at all. So in this case, we would probably suggest, if anything, a fee in lieu, but to actually construct, it would be the proverbial sidewalk to nowhere.
Well, it wouldn't.
And there's nothing proposed anytime in the near future. Excuse me?
It wouldn't be an if anything. It's Staff's not going to the board without a condition requiring a fee in lieu or construction.
And I think we would proffer for the fee in lieu.
You have to work with Brett. We do have a new policy for sidewalks regarding fee in lieu. You have to crunch some numbers and see if you qualify for the.
Sure. Would that be with you, sir? Okay.
I can address that very quickly. I mean, as far as I know, the policy for being applied to this, I'm aware of some cases at the board where they still apply the policy, but I don't think we as staff have the ability up front to say that we do fee in lieu. I think at this point, we have to say, if you build a sidewalk, this is something that you want to pursue as a fee in lieu, you can request that to the board.
It'll make Casey very grumpy.
That didn't sound like. So,
I don't know.
So let's talk about this at our next meeting.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, but let me just interject quickly. Staff is supposed to, sorry, Emily Ias here. Staff is supposed to make a recommendation to the board on the sidewalk issue and the policy. I don't believe that they're supposed to show up at the board meeting and ask for it there. I think that was the direction we got.
I think we can meet with transportation and come up with a suggested recommendation as part of your staff report. If we could do it, I think that would be the best way. I hear what she's saying. Clearly, we don't want this to be deliberated on the planning board floor.
Right. So Emily, right now we're recommending construction of the sidewalk. We'll continue to talk about this with the applicant as we move forward, but that's our recommendation at this point.
Understood.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to mention? There were some agencies who hadn't provided responses. Do we think that they will? Expecting
which agencies that we were aware?
They weren't ones that are, normally the major source of comments.
Mine probably shows up as.
Yours does show as incomplete. Do you have anything else beyond what you've said today?
I tried about 10 times to get it to say complete, but it didn't work. But I did provide markups on the individual sheets.
On this one. Maybe it's.
So you have the content, you just don't have my recommended.
Okay.
C markups.
Yeah, I don't have the right.
The comments on the plans.
Yeah, that's complete.
Yeah, I don't have the right thing up. There's a summary that.
Are you looking for this? Brent?
Yellow sheet.
This sheet where it lists incomplete.
Some of them, thank you very much. Paper really does help.
Incomplete.
Archaeology is unlikely to be an issue. Master plan.
I don't think there was anything.
Master plan did not anticipate the existence of solar panels.
I don't.
It's an old master plan. DPS.
Which department?
DPS enforcement and zoning. It says incomplete.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a zoning issue. It is permitted, so we shouldn't worry about that. And sediment and stormwater.
Have you submitted a stormwater concept?
Yes. Yeah, we got comments back and resubmitted maybe 2 weeks ago.
So okay. That's essentially what they're
Yeah, so for DPS zoning enforcement, I thought we would get comments because, again, I'm thinking that's who's determining if there are building permits or not, and the sort of DPS questions that we were asking earlier. I think they would end up providing comment on.
Does it show as assigned?
No. Oh, well, let's see. No, it doesn't have anybody assigned.
There's nobody on from zoning right now, so.
So that's, I guess the task did not get.
Yeah, the concept reviewer was Andrew Kohler.
That's
right.
For stormwater for
Oh, okay.
I think Melissa Gautos.
Okay.
Probably be reach out to.
Andrew, did you have anything else to add about stormwater with this project, or just that you received a concept plan?
I've received it, I reviewed it, and had a meeting with their engineer, so it's in progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think this is it. We're at the end of our time. Any last minute questions, Francoise?
I don't think so. Anybody else?
Okay.
Nothing.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. This is the DRC meeting for Buck Lodge Tract. I am Christina Sorrento. I am the chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And the lead reviewer is Jeff Server. He has brought up the plan. Thank you, Jeff. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. And I'll first ask Jeff to kind of highlight any of the major issues we should discuss. So go ahead, Jeff.
Sure. Good morning, or I guess good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Major issues on this one. I think the biggest concerns beyond some, we can talk a little bit about some of the parking, but it's just sort of the general layout. I know this is a preliminary plan, but just in looking at the proposed building locations and the amount of driveways and kind of split parking areas, and just it seems very, very confusing in terms of where you would actually, I don't know, there are parking lots that are behind the building and to the side and then kind of spread out on the street. So I think one of the biggest concerns we've had in looking at this is just trying to understand the overall layout in relationship to the buildings, and then sort of the function of the buildings, as they all do seem to be just a little bit different in size, and sort of a question that stems from that is what the proposed uses would be for the different buildings. The other, I think, issue, kind of going in tandem with that, is sort of the location of the buildings. Again, I know it's illustrative, but if there was any way to potentially move the buildings closer to fronting out onto the street or something like that, those are kind of the major ones. The only other major issue is that there isn't a location right here, that's showing up where my cursor is, where the drive lane and a parking stall is overhanging from the IM zone and is actually shown in the rural zone. That would actually need to be placed purely within the IM zone, so that would need to be corrected. Outside of that, I'm happy to turn it over to questions.
Good morning, Dave McKee, Benning Associates. Thank you, Jeff, for the comments there. I did look over everything this morning, late Friday and this morning. Haven't had a chance really to confer with our team yet. Sue Lee Cho is here at the meeting. She's representing the team and the applicant also, so she may have some questions for you. But I'll just say a few things about the plan. This plan was originally approved in 1991 for 2 lots and several outlots. It was industrial property at that time. Buck Ridge Court, and I know you know most of this, was built. It's there today, built as a commercial street. But the site was never developed. And the reason it was never developed is that there just wasn't enough floor area approved. It was limited by septic, and there just wasn't enough building there to build to make it worthwhile for anybody to step in and do it seems. So it's been sitting around for quite a long time. We've been able to overcome, after all that time, the septic limitations by proposing sand mounds. We still have some in-ground septic areas that are proposed on lots 2 and 4 at the front. You see those on the plan, but primarily all of the increase is coming about by the way of sand mounds, which are, the rectangles on the plan. You've got your cursor over one of those. So everything is driven by that. Everything is driven by septic, well and septic, but primarily septic. The mound locations on lots 1, lot 2, not where we normally want to put them. They're on the good flat ground on the ridge. Ideally, we'd want buildings there, but the mounds are there. We're kind of stuck with that. So the driveway, the building placement, everything is working around the septic. And the parking areas, yeah, there are things we could do. That's mostly conceptual at this stage, certainly. But the size of the building is based on septic capacity and also topography. Some of the buildings are proposed as 2-level, given that they're placed on slopes and it makes sense to fit the grade. And also that's tied directly to the septic capacity. The GFA based on warehouse space, which is a generic industrial use. all leads back to the septic capacity and what we have available to us. So that's kind of what leads to the plan. Leads to the driveway layout. Driveways working around the septic areas, and again the buildings where they're placed for the most part, especially in lots 1 and 2, I would say. As far as questions that I have, I see comments about screening, and I just wonder how we would go about addressing that at this stage. Does that mean a landscape plan should be added to the package, or do we refer to some of the requirements that would be in the zoning ordinance with some notes and things? So that would be a question that I do have at this time. Our next step after this meeting is we have been hearing from Boyd's Civic Association. They've been in touch with Park and Planning directly, I know. And I talked to Sandra last week, and we'll be reaching out to them and getting setting up a meeting with them directly to present the plan and get feedback from them directly, which we can convey back to you. But that's everything that I have at the moment.
Okay, thank you. In regards to your question about screening, yeah, if you can include a landscape plan, that would be helpful. It would help us to better understand how you might approach that for the residents, especially the ones that are expressing concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good morning. So this Sue Lee Cho with Bregman, Burbert, Schwartz, and Gilday on behalf of the applicant. Just kind of following on David's comments are sort of what is driving the layout. How would staff suggest we further approach this? I mean, it is unfortunate, well, due to the septic issue, it is limited in terms of where these buildings can be sited, and then relatedly, the parking associated with the buildings. So, I mean, I guess I'm sort of looking for a little more guidance from staff in response to that response. How would you like us to further proceed on this plan?
For starters, I would suggest trying to consolidate the parking as much as possible. Right now, like as Dave described, it's sort of spread out by necessity, but if there is some flexibility in trying to consolidate that as much as possible, I think that would be a very positive step forward in trying to just make the layout a little bit more cohesive. Again, I understand the limitations that exist with the sand mounds and the locations. I don't know if there is any flexibility in their locations, but if there is, and there's a way to actually try to get the buildings a little bit more oriented around the street, or create something that feels sort of like a cohesive street rather than just kind of a network of driveways.
Sure. And do we hear from DPS on the septic?
Yeah, they've reviewed the plan repeatedly. I don't know if Heidi is present, but we've had a lot of back and forth, and I would say, and she can certainly back that up when she's able to, but there's not a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
When you say the orienting around the street, do you mean the proposed driveway, or are you talking about Buckridge Court? What are you referring to when you say relate better to the street?
I think what I'm trying to say is that treating the driveway as more of like a street rather than just as a driveway. So trying to make that street feel like it has some connectivity beyond just sort of going from a parking lot to a parking lot to a loading area. I think that's sort of what is driving the concern.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of my comments.
Sorry,
was extending that stub on lot 4 to actually terminate at Buckridge Court, because it's a fairly wide street. Much of it is not really going to be utilized by the existing property, even with the limitations. So that was one of my major comments.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on who is speaking, just for my notes.
Yeah, Brett Brown's our transportation planner. He's coming to the table, so you can hear him.
Sorry about that. I said one of my comments was just kind of piggybacking off of Jeff was to create a new connection from that stub end at lot 4 where the parking lot just kind of dead ends and creating a continuation to the cul-de-sac at Buck Ridge Court. I mean, right now, Buck Ridge Court is not really utilized. It's a huge street. There's an existing infrastructure. So if there's any way, even if we're not able to actually have the properties front on Buck Ridge Court, at least create a secondary connection so it doesn't just feel like a dead end street coming off of another dead end street.
Right. Dave, was there a reason why you stubbed it? Is there any reason why we can't connect it to the cul-de-sac?
I did have a plan that showed that actually, so definitely we could thought about that and can do that. I think in the end I was just deciding to reduce some of the impervious. That was the only reason.
Do we have an applicable impervious cap that we're trying to?
No, we're good there.
So just I will throw out something from what I'm seeing on the plans. If we maybe looked at this as 2 groupings for the buildings, the 2 on the lot 1 side of the property and sort of organizing the parking more as a joint use between those 2 buildings, and then doing the same on the lot 4 and lot 5. Is that sort of a clustering kind of design? Would that be something in line with what staff's thinking?
I think that'd be a good step forward. Yes.
Yeah. So, and just to be clear, sorry, I'm jumping back in I'm trying to get back to the septic issue. I heard Dave, you said that there were constraints and a lot of exchange, et cetera. Are you saying, I know Heidi's not here, she's on vacation, we'll certainly catch up with her, but are you saying that DPS Well and Septic is telling you this must be your location for your sand mounds?
Based on the test. Yes, this is all we have. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Patrick. My understanding of sand mounds is it's a very specific process to locate them where they will work properly. Is that correct, Dave?
That is correct. Yeah, there were tests done and there were other tests done that failed. So we're kind of stuck with what we got there. Exactly.
Yeah, no, right. And I just want to make sure I was understanding your limitations so that we didn't,
Sure.
throw a bunch of ideas out that just aren't workable. At a minimum, I would say that, yeah, thinking of the 2, lots 1 and having trouble, the 2 buildings close to each other on the left and then the 2 buildings close to each other on the right, if you're like clustering those and doing shared parking and some, what we've described, I think that would be the minimum. I think the ideal would be, is there a way that we can get all of this to work together and, again, have that front loop, maybe complete the loop to Buck Ridge Court and have this sort of a, internal drive that organizes the rest of the development, and just wanted to see what options we had to really have this be one thought. I think the next best thing would have to be 2 thoughts, but anyways, just wanted to try to understand your limitations and what flexibility we actually had to work with the site and try to make this a little more organized and present it better.
Hey, Dave, before we leave the well, if it's not too much trouble, when you resubmit, could you include the locations of the failed test sites? Just so that we can kind of look at them and compare.
Yeah, don't replow background.
Yeah, those are on the septic plan, but we can do that, sure.
Okay, yeah, no, it'd be helpful just so we can cover and understand it.
Sure.
The other thing too is that when you do include the landscape plan to show the screening, also show, if we do kind of explore this idea of a loop that kind of connects these to Buck Ridge Court, it'd be great to show large street trees along that street, just kind of reinforcing the idea that this would be more of a street and less of a network of driveways and so forth.
Sure.
Are you looking for trees along the internal driveway or just along Buck Ridge Court?
Sorry, along Buck Ridge Court, or you're talking about the loop?
Yeah,
she's asking.
Yeah, both, ideally.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Both, please.
Both?
Yes.
Okay. Dave, did you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think I'm okay.
Right, like I said, like Dave indicated, we will be reaching out to the Boyd Civic Association to do a meeting. My understanding is this was filed as an administrative, correct? And so it did not have a pre-submission meeting requirement, but we will be reaching out and having that conversation with the association.
This is a preliminary plan amendment, just so you're.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's not an administrative.
Oh, my apologies.
No problem.
Okay, anything else on this item? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
I am Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC discussion item, Goal of School Special Exception Modification. The lead reviewer is Mark Beal, and we're just here really to discuss this item. So I'll turn it over to Mark first to talk about anything with the project that he wants to talk about, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Okay, Mark.
Thank you. Mark Beal, lead reviewer. Basically, we're just adding in the extra lower school and this location and moving the loop road around. Sent you comments on Friday. Nothing really major, just kind of want some confirmation on some things with lighting, landscaping, parking, some transportation things. Are there any questions on the applicant's end?
Hi, good afternoon, Suli Cho, and I have Pat LeVay with me and Tom Carr representing the school. We've had a chance to look at your comments. I think we're prepared to ask some questions, in particular on the transportation comments first. And then I think we have some answers, but I'll let Pat go through the questions we have on the transportation comments first.
Sure. Give me 1 second here.
So before Pat starts, just deep background, this is a campus master plan that you're looking at that has been built upon since 2004. So this goes all the way back to a major modification that was done in 2004. And over the course of the time period, there have been changes to that campus master plan done administratively. And so some of the things that Mark, you might be seeing that is not consistent with the 2004 approval is because there have been adjustments to the campus master plan through the administrative process. I don't know if you have the full record of the administrative approvals, but if not, I can compile all that and get that to you so you can sort of understand how we got to the campus master plan that you're looking at now.
Okay. Yeah, so if you could get that to me, that would be great.
And one of the things that happened since 2004 was the addition of the Tauber property into the school special exception area, which isn't being touched, or it's not the subject of this application, but the Board of Appeals a number of years ago approved a administrative modification just to adjust the boundary of the special exception to include that former, what we call the former Tauber property that had residential subdivided lots that have not been built out. So, that's what that appendage onto what we call affectionately the East Campus, but there's really not much there. Then the only real activity that the school uses that property for is for cross-country, team running. And really light use. There's no structure improvements or anything like that planned, at least in the short term. The school's always talking about potential long-term usage of that plan or that portion of the site, but that's not the subject of this special exception modification.
Okay.
I am going to pull up Google Earth here, so just give me 1 second longer. So I think I see Chris on the camera there. I'm guessing these transportation comments came from you. Okay, great. So just want to get clarification on, there was a comment about the existing crosswalk at the entrance. I know we have it. I'm going to share my screen here. There's a bus stop. Oh, come on, screen. Can you guys see my screen here?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Yep. So this is the main entrance to the campus. There is a bus stop here and a crosswalk that comes across here, and then there's a lead walk to the school. I think the comment was about doing something here to have a pedestrian refuge. Is that your intention, Chris, was to have a pedestrian refuge here at the throat of the existing entrance?
It's actually at the crosswalk between the two bus stops.
Oh, here, okay, okay.
So right in there.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was trying to, because there isn't a crosswalk here. I was trying to figure that out. Okay. Yeah, subject, I mean, obviously subject to SHA, review. We'd have to vet that with them, but you're just looking for like the little raised island with the little signs that say.
Yeah, so raised island,
cross.
hopefully SHA has their own standards that we can pull from. So Lupin Quasi and their engineering team. But yeah, that's what we're asking.
Okay. Next question was about if
the bigger question, I'm sure you're going to get to it, is there sounds to be some sort of memorandum of understanding, as I understand it,
right?
About frontage improvements. So I haven't seen that. I don't know what's in that. So I'm kind of flying a little bit blind. And until I see that, I'm having trouble with what we need to request and what we can request at the frontage, but something along the lines of having a crosswalk at that driveway entrance would be something we want, as long as it connects to something. So that is something that we'd be interested in seeing. I just don't know what is in that agreement.
Right. So the memorandum of understanding is really just a timing issue. So there is a hiker-biker trail or path, bikeway that was part of the master plan along Falls Road. This predates the bikeway master plan, but there is a hiker-biker trail, and Pat, we at the time it was 8 feet wide, correct?
Yes, and there are plans, preliminary design plans for that. Probably
yeah, so that was
35% or so.
So that hiker-biker trail was something that was required as part of the preliminary plan approval that followed the 2004 master plan, campus master plan. And the MOU just addresses the timing of construction. The county did not want that hiker-biker trail constructed until there was a CIP for the rest of Falls Road, until that CIP caught up to a status of funding that the hiker-biker along Falls Road would be more imminent, that then the school would construct its portion along its frontage. And in particular, the reason for it is because State Highway also wanted a reservation of land that sort of cuts across and straightens out that curve along Falls Road. But they didn't want to. State Highway has no plan to implement that straightening of that curve in any near future. And so the dilemma that the school was in was, do you put a hiker-biker trail along the future curvature of that road, which didn't make a lot of sense to anybody, either the county or the state, or along the current curvature of the road, which also didn't make a lot of sense because of that potential future flattening of that curve. So in light of that dilemma, that's why the memorandum of understanding came about.
Okay, so yeah, we definitely want to see the memorandum just to go through the details. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like the school is in fact on the hook to construct things, and I think that would be something we want to pursue sooner rather than later. So some portion should be done as linked to this application, and that's something I want to see. Look through that memorandum to see what exactly is required.
Well, certainly we'll provide you with a copy.
And I understand that this is also on Democracy Boulevard. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, Democracy, there was not a memorandum. Democracy path has been permitted and bonded. That's a separate issue from the MOU with regards to Falls Road.
Okay, so the school has already bonded for that construction?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that was tied to some other previous approvals, so that's already been permitted and bonded.
And was there a reason it wasn't constructed?
I don't know. And, didn't really have any kind of triggering mechanisms other than getting it permitted.
Yeah, there was no push, frankly, on the county side to get it constructed because it literally is just floating and connects nothing. There was a wait and see type of approach because of the Tauber property, and the subdivision at that time was in flux. There was some thought that if the residential project moved forward, there would be a reason to connect to that along the democracy frontage, but then the Tauber subdivision didn't happen, and it just sort of continued to not be, it make a lot of sense to connect to nothing. So, and again, what Pat was indicating was that there was no triggering mechanism other than, getting it permitted, bonded. So it's just been ready and being held.
Yeah, so that one sounds to me that one's ready to go, and we should link that with this project. So that one I think is easy. We'll move forward with that. The rest, I think the bigger question is how much of the rest of the frontage are we going to require as part of this application? I don't have an answer for you quite yet. That realignment issue is a good one. We have to address that. Up to now, we weren't as interested in pursuing the dedication for that realignment, so we'll have to circle back and see if this bike path realignment might warrant something.
There is a covenant. Yeah. There is a covenant on the record plat for that additional dedication. Just FYI, that if you look at the record plat, there's quite a large area in this corner, and there's some other ones sprinkled out throughout the site, I think, where basically the school has agreed to dedicate that in the future whenever that realignment happens, right, Sue? Yes.
I mean, certainly happy to share the document and have further conversation, but there was extensive interaction with State Highway, and this was something that they felt very strongly that we enter into an MOU with the county. They really did not want to see the flattening of Falls Road in that corner anytime soon, or anything that might, sort of have a domino effect in that regard.
Yeah, and that's right. And when was it signed? When was this document?
I want to say 2007, but I may be wrong.
Obviously, you've seen this how rapidly our philosophy has changed just in the last 2-3 years. We are all build it now with these bike improvements. So I think
what Chris is saying is if that MOU was 15 years ago and you have an application in now, then we're going to look at it now. I mean, we're not you're amending the plan. We're not tied to what to some extent, we're not locked to what you applied for previously or were granted. You're applying for a modification now, and we're evaluating that. Yeah, so I think we'll have to reach out and figure out with SHA. Here's what we're recommending, and it's likely going to be a robust frontage improvement package here that we're describing. I think in some hands what we were expecting previously, in other hands what we would, see that's pretty standard today. So, and then how exactly it occurs or where, I think that's pretty flexible. In terms of this intersection, additional dedication, do we even still think we need that area of dedication? Do we, really want this to be a wide sweeping turn? Do we want to maybe keep the intersection close to its current configuration and try to slow traffic as much as possible, especially next to a school? I don't know. I mean, there's a conversation worth having, I think. And it sounds like it was an old one, so. Anyways, I think, we'll just have to navigate that together as we move forward. And Sue, per our recent, very, very minor, one lot subdivision or two, whatever it was, I think the board's going to be looking for us to have some answers here. So, Yeah, I think we can figure it out though.
No, I mean, again, open to having those conversations. We obviously have to have them. I just trying to provide the full history and background for how we came about to be here.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Real quick, Chris, much smaller scope, obviously, but the raised protected median here in Falls Road, if we implement that, that's kind of like, I don't know, at the center of the road. Is that a frontage improvement, or could that potentially be one of our items that qualifies for the proportionality for offsite stuff?
I mean, I would still call that a frontage improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, the offsite improvement, it's what was it? Something over just around $17,000. So
yeah,
you need to identify something other than that, which is probably going to be a small extension of the shared use path. But if you find something that's comparable, but just a couple options to look at.
Okay. Yeah, we have to get with Wells on the actual improvements we're going to offer up. I just was thinking about that as I looked at that little area, because as you can imagine, in this area there's not a lot in terms of ped and bike infrastructure. So, and like you said, maybe it's as simple as just extending the path, one of these paths, a little bit further. So, my other question was about you mentioned having an additional. It sounded like a lead walk connection. I didn't quite understand if you were suggesting that maybe it's a far walk to get from the crosswalk and bus stop in question to our new building and have an additional lead walk. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So have a lead walk from the building to Falls Road, but obviously closer, because that's a good,
So
round trip, couple at least 2,000 feet, something like that.
Yeah, so our main concern with that is a security issue. To the extent that the lead walk is near the main entrance of the school, which is gated, and there are security personnel along that circle all the time. There's sort of just watchful eyes of entrance into the campus. Having a lead walk further south along Falls is, I think, what you're suggesting. I think that the main concern would be the security aspect of it. The other access point that the school has on Democracy is also a gated entrance. So we understand the comment, but we're struggling with the security needs of the school and how to make it make sense.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It's something that we were facing with schools across the county, but we actively are pursuing methods to make schools, these major destinations, much more accessible. So there's plenty of strategies that you could take. You could potentially put in a gate that you close after school hours, put a security camera, whatever it takes. But getting additional connections, especially at a campus of the size, is something we want to pursue.
Well, I think we're going to have to have more conversations with the school. I mean, having connectivity along the public road area that then connects to the major entrance points, but having another entrance point altogether into the campus is going to be a concern.
Yeah, I think as Sue mentioned, if you can see my screen here, if you were to visit the school, today or any day, you'd see there's always a person in a vehicle, a security guard, he's sitting here monitoring this entrance. And I think they do the same at the Falls Road exit during certain hours. And then, like Sue said, Democracy has a big 8-foot gate or something like that. But from the school's perspective, the challenge with additional, pedestrian, and you could put a gate there, but you wouldn't have person's eyes on it all the time.
Right, especially with the lower school. Can you do the aerial again? You're talking about a connection directly to the lower school.
It should be right
where we are not going to have. I mean, lower school kids are going to be dropped off they're not as, I don't see them walking to the side on their own at that age. This is up to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation we have with public schools, for instance. You can go back through the last few discussion items at the board with the exact same logic, the exact same rationale. I understand it. It's just, it's not something that the board is interested in. They really want to pursue walkability to in particular schools. It's a major priority for the board. So I don't see, I don't really see a way to avoid that. It will definitely be a point of discussion at the board. Now, there could be some solutions.
Again, I mean, I would disagree that there is a connectivity issue. I mean, the lower school will be very connected pedestrian-wise from the main entrance down. I mean, it's not going to be inaccessible. We're just talking about, a cut through to the public road. Maybe we can look at doing something more toward the gated entrance, Pat, because on the other side of the motor, where the bus parking is located, maybe there's a way to get more pedestrians in through that entrance.
Yeah, I think we just need to talk to the school and their security team about it. I mean, I think what Chris describes, is I've heard those conversations. They've been geared more towards public schools where you have, publicly accessible playgrounds and fields and community use of the facility. This being a private institution, it's a little bit different. But I think we just need to talk to Melissa's security team about, if we were to make a connection, where could it happen, where they're comfortable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, do have that conversation. I'm just saying it will definitely be a priority at the board. We do want to see these connections.
I'm trying to get my screen back. I think that was all for questions. There was one more clarification point. There was a comment about bike parking. This being a special exception modification, we are sticking with the old 2004 zoning that didn't have long-term and short-term bike parking, and I don't believe we have offered up use of the new code. We certainly can provide some additional bike parking, and bike parking is required under the old code too, but we don't currently have anything planned for long-term storage inside this lower school building.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to look into that. That may be the case.
Did you understand the parking about trying to figure out what the parking count is? Because we've got 3 different plans or 2 different plans that show 2 different things, and some stuff's not installed at all as far as what's shown on both the plans.
Yeah, so good comment, good point, and I realize it could definitely be confusing. You're right, there's some stuff that's been approved in the record that hasn't been built. The current numbers on the special exception site plan, if this reflect what's there on the ground today, what we'll do, Marcus, we'll get you an exhibit that shows, like what's existing and proposed together with the parking count that will be as of this project, and then have that kind of as a separate exhibit if that would help.
Okay. And you guys got Doug Johnson and Josh Penn's comments from the last month or so?
Yeah, we did. And all the landscape stuff's been addressed. We just haven't resubmitted it. I know we submitted a forest conservation plan application. It's got to make its way through intake, I guess. But we will get all of that. We're not planning on, just for Josh's knowledge, we're not planning on touching any of the easements with this. This would just all be, work within this developed part of the site, so to speak. So that's the good news. We won't be changing any easements as we have done before out here.
And just to touch upon the tree issues, there was a comment about looks like more recently removed trees along the Falls Road frontage, and we've investigated and we're able to find out that those were a result of Pepco coming through. Is that right, Pat?
That's what the school's facilities staff said. I mean, those trees were like right on top of the property line. If you look at their stumps in relation to the property line. So, and there are overhead wires there. So it makes sense. I mean, if we need to do something in there to fill that back in somehow, I think the school would be fine with it. I mean, they're interested in keeping that field sort of secure and screening help with that. So.
something's going to need to be done just because the way the master plan says you got to protect, you got to screen special exceptions from residential areas and major roads. So if you got to move it in site a little, move it onto the site a little further so it's not under the Pepco power lines. But yeah, it needs to be addressed per master plan.
Okay. And the fence that's there, we wouldn't, if we do something, that fence wouldn't be part of it. I think that fence actually was put up by the state maybe years ago. So we would do whatever we do would be inside of that fence. That fence is actually in the right of way.
Yeah. Okay. And are you guys replacing that fence? Because there's a comment on one of the sheets that said replacing chain link fence with white vinyl fence.
Yeah, there's been discussions for a while now about from the school that, that fence is kind of unsightly, but it's been there for a very long time. And I think their school has a desire, of course, that fence is in the right of way. So it would be, and I think the state might have put it up. So we did want to introduce that, I think, into the record of this application, just if that fence were to get changed, that it's, not a surprise to the board and everybody else. But yeah, that's the ultimate goal of the school would be to get a nicer looking fence along that road frontage.
Okay.
And that was something I didn't honestly notice. So you're not proposing putting new fence in the right of way, are you?
We would just replace, well, one of two things would happen. Either we would replace what's there, the chain link fence with a vinyl, 3-rail kind of vinyl fence, or we would just put it on our site and get rid of the chain link fence, I guess would be the two options. Of course, there's challenges with putting it completely on the site because of the way that Falls Road was built and some of these existing features, particularly on the east end of the campus. This exit road here is almost in the state right of way, so it would be very hard to get a fence up in there. And then you've got some challenges with trees here, so it's kind of a complicated matter that we haven't resolved yet.
Well, so that you'll definitely have to bring up with SHA.
Yeah.
Right away. They say whatever they want.
And there's more down on the south end of the project too that were removed.
Trees
down near where the lower, right through there. All those trees were.
Yeah, those are the ones we were talking about with Pepco.
Okay, I thought you were pointing up further. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, in light of the master plan's screening requirements, would a more, board-on-board screening fence help to facilitate that screening requirement, or does it have to be plantings? I don't know how these trees just got lopped off. I don't know who, but I would hate to plant trees and just continue to be in conflict with Pepco. I'm just wondering if it makes sense to look at, since we're looking at fencing, maybe that could serve a dual purpose.
Let me go back and look at the exact wording of the master plan, and I'll let you know. Does that work?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could let us know that. I know historically, I don't know what the master plan says in regards to this, but I know historically, from a zoning perspective, as everybody probably knows, you had that sort of option of fence or landscape or both, but yeah, maybe if we can solve it with something that's not going to be in the way of utility wires, that would help.
Okay.
We can also just look at moving I don't know how much room we have, but moving the landscaping inboard as much as possible to get it, away from that concern. There is a PUE, there's a funny PUE here where the PUE is actually separated from the property line as it currently exists because of that future dedication covenant. So the PUE is actually further into the site than you would normally see it. So we'd want to make the landscaping inside that probably.
Okay.
So I know that in previous communications with Mark, we've been given the date July 29th as the final submission date by the applicant to get, queued up for the hearing that's scheduled on this matter, which we're still we would love to still obviously hit that date. I just want to put out there, Mark, that part of what you're going to see is some fine tuning of the operational descriptions, because the justification that we submitted really didn't get into a lot of detail on the operations, only because there have been some changes over the course of the years since 2004. They're not wholesale changes, but we just wanted the record to reflect current operations. So you'll be seeing that as well.
Okay.
Hi, this is Josh. Just for the record, the July 29th final submission date, like you said earlier, the forest conservation plan has been submitted apparently, but it's not even through intake yet, so I have no clue what it's going to look like. So with that being entailed, until I see it, I can't really review it.
Understood. Now, do you think as a matter of procedure, because we're not touching easements, does that need to go to the board, or could that just be an administrative review of that?
Can't take it as a separate item if part of it's going to the board. If part of it's going to the board, so the forest conservation plan has to go with the item to the board.
Even though they're separate applications in terms of like their number?
They're one item, separate applications, but it is one triggering event, which is the modification.
Okay.
All right, we're at our time. Are there any other questions or comments?
Thank you all.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.